is one person who called in. Caller, your line is showing up as 111. Did you have a question you would like to ask Mr. Fuller?
Yes, I apologize for earlier. I was actually trying to put the kids to bed, and I didn't want them to bother me while I was going to make the comment, and you recorded the whole thing. So
no problem.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole thing from the beginning, but I kind of came in when Mr. Fuller was talking about the whole gay, feminine men in history, and my name is the Gay Mentor. That's my show name on here, and I was just curious his perspective of minority gay females or lesbians, or does he feel like since they're females, it's kind of the opposite, that maybe Caucasian men or men in general heterosexual men might feel intimidated, or, is there an issue, or is it, do they get away with a little bit more? Do we get away with a little bit more because we are females, and maybe less people are intimidated by us? I was just, curious about your perspective on that. And then I also had another comment, but I didn't know if you wanted me to kind of question. I don't know if you want me to wait till you answer that one.
Could I ask if you're a white person or a non-white person?
I am half black, half Puerto Rican. My mom, she's, was a Black Panther when she was younger, natural Afro, and just real down-to-earth person. And my dad, born in Puerto Rico, that type of thing.
You're non-white.
Right, non-white. But my
godmother... According to the white supremacists, you would be non-white.
Right, absolutely.
You'd be in the non-white category.
Yes. But
that's what they go by.
But once you answer this question, I was gonna tell you a little brief experience, and I wanted your comment on that.
All right. You have a brief experience of what kind?
Well, did you want to answer? Yeah, it's something totally different. It has to do with kind of like race relations. So I don't know if you want to address the.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'll deal with the first. I'll deal with it like I will deal with it in the order that you want me to do it. So your first question was. Hello.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Please.
What was our first question?
Was the question, do you think, Mr. Fuller, do you think that non-white females or so-called lesbian females, do you think they might get more privileges or get away with doing more than a non-white male, since the white supremacists might not consider a non-white female or a lesbian non-white female, they might not consider them to be as big a threat than a non-white male? Was that the question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In some instances. See, it depends on what the white supremacists want to do. See, that's the part that has to be yet to be studied when this whole thing plays out. They have an agenda. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spreading it all over Africa and whatnot.
No, I'm sorry. What did you mean?
The white supremacists are all. Hello, go ahead.
Okay, what were you talking about all over Africa? I was trying to get a perspective, like, how would you perceive my life? Would you feel like, I was, I have more privilege, like you were talking about some of the gay black men had more privilege in history than some of the other Caucasian men because they were less intimidating to the white supremacists. And I was asking, as a female, not a male, lesbian, minority, do you feel like possibly we might be the very, very bottom of the tier as far as subjected to all sorts of prejudice from all sorts of directions, from racism to, sexism to being gay and all that type of stuff? Or do you feel like we're not as intimidating as maybe some other groups?
Well, see, that's what I mean by evidence. See, we don't. You won't know that really, nor will I, until you actually experience pressure from whatever source. Okay? Then you will know, because that pressure will have come about because the white supremacists have determined that that's where it's going to come. See, they will make that decision if you are in the non-white category. All right? And it has been my observation that the white supremacists consider anyone who say that anybody in their family is black, that came before them. And because Puerto Rican is not a color. See, so what the white supremacists do...
I don't really... to be honest with you, I'll just get into my next point, so you probably get a better idea where I'm coming from. I was in the military, and I was stationed on a small ship that had a wide variety of people, people who weren't even American citizens on this boat and on the ship. And I would say ratio-wise, because, of course, there were far more Caucasians in there than, minorities or blacks or whatever, Asians. I would have to say, in all honesty, that a lot of the minorities, ratio-wise, gave me more problems than a lot of the Caucasian people. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of those Caucasian people who didn't give me problems were not racist. I can't label certain people, but what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be just wiser in life just to judge people as individuals, see how they treat you, and then you decide based off of their actions what type of person this person is, because you never know. I mean, there might be white people. I know there are. I'm sure racism will probably exist as long as I'm alive. But I believe there are white people who generally want to help other non-white people. I'm not saying depend on them. I'm just saying be aware of, whatever your environment is and the type of people you're dealing with.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. What you are describing right now, like the ship that you were on and all like that, that's exactly the way that the white supremacists want it. Because what you were describing is confusion.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Huh?
I'm not going to disagree with that.
You said you do disagree with that?
I will not disagree with that.
Oh, okay. Well, now, what you were looking at on that ship, because a ship is an excellent place. See, they experiment on ships.
Oh, listen, I'm not going to disagree with that either. You should listen to one of my shows.
Yes, see, I mean, a ship is a laboratory for experiment. The slave ships themselves were laboratories of experimentation. So by the time they got to land, they had already worked out how a lot of things are going to work, because they had a captive audience. They had a captive clientele. It's something about being isolated on the water.
Okay, but okay, and then I'll get to a general. I mean, your ideas are very interesting, and honestly, when you were talking about the whole gay men and certain positions, I didn't live during that time, but that sounds very interesting. But ultimately, despite all the horrific experiences I had while in the military, right now I am benefiting from that experience, and I don't feel like I'm experiencing racism through that system. But I feel like it's because I spent a lot of time doing a lot of research, and I don't know if it's true that I'm doing 10 times more than a white person next to me, but I know I spend a lot of time looking out for me. You know what I mean? And then I also look out for other people, but not like as a black or white thing. It's like as a veteran, as a gay person, as a black person, as an individual. You know what I mean? Like anybody who's with it. I'm not out here to support hate. When I joined the military, I didn't join the military because I wanted to bomb other countries. I mean, I was one of those people that were looking for benefits at a young age, and I got it. I got it. And,
sure.
And so, you know what I mean? But and listen, I did experience racism and sexism and more than that there, okay? And I'm not denying that. And I'm not saying that, and I do, like you said, experiment. Yes, I felt that way. I felt like the ship was like a small world experiment, you know what I mean? Like just everybody put in that little boat of experimenting on society. But
Now, hold it right there. Hold it right there. If you could perceive that at a subliminal level,
at 18 through 22, yes.
That's what I'm saying. The white supremacists didn't discover this. The white supremacists set it up because that's what they were doing. They are experimenting to see what people will. They have done this as far back as the beginning of racism.
But do you
they know
that?
what kind of setups they can have where they can steer people into thinking whichever way they want people to think. They are masters at this. These are not things that happen by accident. That's what I'm saying. They know that under certain conditions, a ghetto, for instance, or a shanty town, or a ship, that you can do certain things. And then you can watch people in all types of environment. And you can actually steer them in such a way, they don't even know they're being steered.
No, that's very interesting, too. And I do believe that to a certain extent, yet I don't really think it was...
master psychologist.
I don't really
nobody
think it was,
that tops them at it.
Well, no, I mean, honestly, through my observation, I didn't think it was necessarily so much... I believe there was systematic racism and all that type of stuff like you're talking about. Yes, we agree on that. But also, to a certain level, everyone had to take responsibility for their actions. You know, like I knew if I stayed in there, I was going to have to be a different person than I wanted to be, okay? Or it was going to be very difficult for me. Some people can be cool, but it's very difficult for them. But they feel like that's their only option, perhaps. But if everyone takes, because no matter what they did to me, I took responsibility for my action. I did not let them manipulate me. And yes, I had to deal with, you know, instead of being I was big time at one point. Towards the end, when they realized I was really getting out, I was very serious about what I felt about the military. Because a lot of people in the Navy, they're like, fuck this, fuck that. And that's all of them. But they stay in, and that's not just black people. I mean, a lot of black people get out. You know, that's all types of people. So if there's a racism or a systematic system going on, you know, they're all experiencing it to a certain extent.
Yes, but I have this question.
Yes.
At what point in your existence on the planet did you take what you started saying, responsibility, and that you no longer were being manipulated? Because
honestly, to be honest with you, from day one, but I think they thought I was a teenager, and you know, they just had to, you know, praise me and give me everything that someone would want, and you know, I mean, not saying I didn't earn these things. You know, I took these tests, and you know, I showed up one time, and I did what I was supposed to do, responsibly. But you know, I mean, I was. You know, all these awards, and then it's like, oh, you really are getting out. You really did just use this GI Bill and getting the fuck out, you know, and not looking back.
I understand that, but here's what I'm saying. Under the system of racism, because see, it's a world system.
But do you understand what I'm telling you too? The black people were the same way. I mean, I was in.
I understand this. I want you to listen to me for a minute. I understand all of that. And that's a part of the system.
Who are you trying to blame? Are you trying to blame the white people for manipulating the black people to be racist against me?
No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you what the perspective of the codification. The white supremacists, like the captain of a ship. Now, you said that you were on a ship. That's one thing that I've always been taught about a ship. Whether it's the Titanic or the Forrestal, the captain is to blame for everything that happens on that ship that doesn't supposed to happen. Now, haven't you been taught that? In the Navy, I think you would definitely be taught that.
Well, I didn't need to be taught that. I observed 3 different captains, and I saw how the system worked under different commands.
I mean, you know, in the old days,
I can observe that myself. I don't need someone to tell me.
Okay, well, I'm just saying this. Okay, now. Here's what, just bear with me for a minute. The entire planet is a ship. And the people who believe in the practice of white supremacy are running the entire ship. Now that's the premise. Now that's either true or false. The white people on this planet, not all, but just the white people who believe in white supremacy, they run the planet, period, of all of the business of the people who are classified as non-white. And those people conduct themselves the way that the people who run the planet wanted them conducted. If I board a ship and all the sailors are drunk, I don't bother with the sailors. Anybody who has ever inspected a ship will tell you this. They don't run up and down the deck trying to collar every sailor on that forestall, on that aircraft carrier, and barking at them. No. When they're inspecting that vessel and they find the sailors drunk on that vessel, they go straight to the captain's cabin. Now, the captain of the ship that we call the planet is run by people who believe in and who practice white supremacy. That's the concept. So if you're going to blame someone for anybody, because see,
I'm not blaming anyone. That's what I don't understand.
The people on the planet are all messed up.
No,
okay,
no,
wait a minute. Let me finish.
This is my whole thing. This is my thing.
Okay.
Mr. Fuller,
right.
Mr. Fuller, you, just you
Yes,
as an
ma'am.
individual, you, are you happy in your life?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and see, that's the difference. That's the difference, sir. I am, as some people in this chat room describe me, and I'm sure these people are black. I know they are, in very, not politically correct terms describing my ethnicity, which is unfortunate, and this just proves my point right here. And they think I'm lost, but they're proving my point right here in the chat room. But that's fine. I don't care what you want to call it. Okay.
Oh, you're not supposed
to
if you don't have a problem.
No, sir, let me just finish my point. My point is that despite this racism that exists in society, I'm saying I am happy in my life. And I don't I socialize with anyone. I don't care what race you are, because I know there are good white people. I know there are good black people. I know there are bad people of all different races. And I've always been like that. It was way before the military.
But you say that, well, wait a minute, you say something else, though. You say that you're a female and that you're gay, correct?
Yes, I am.
Now,
which should be another shot against me, right? I should be angry, right? I should be like, oh my God, I can't have these benefits. And I'm not that way.
According to the code, that means that the white supremacists have done their job.
All right. Hey, their job works for me. Well, thank you, white supremacists.
Yes, that's the very point. And you say that you're. Wait a minute, hold it. And you say that you're happy.
I am, and that's the truth. I'm
happy. Absolutely, and that fits the old-fashioned description of gay. Now.
There you go. Hey, check out my homepage.
Yeah, you are gay and you're happy. Wait a minute. Now let's look at it. That's the very point. The first part of the discussion this evening was just about the effect that the white supremacists want to have on what they consider to be non-white people. And that was my premise in the beginning.
Okay,
now,
I missed the beginning.
It's nothing better. It's nothing better than a happy person that the white supremacists have manipulated into being happy.
Why does it have to be white supremacists? Why can't it just be fighting for what you believe in? Why does it have to always be race when I'm saying individuals?
Well, in other words,
is Clarence Thomas, am I supposed to relate to him or something?
Wait a minute, say that again.
Am I supposed to be able to relate to Clarence Thomas? You want me to repeat myself?
Ask the question so that I'll know what the question is.
Am I supposed to be able to relate to Clarence Thomas?
Relate to him how? You're supposed to be able to relate.
Well, I mean, if you're listening to what I'm saying in a row, I'm saying, am I supposed to automatically assume that I am to get along or be able to relate to every black person, or assume that every black person is for my best interest? Or should I assume that a black person over a white person is in my best interest just because that person is black?
That's what I mean by asking one question at a time and answer that question. Okay. In answer to the first question, no, under this system, the way it's set up, you're not supposed to be able to relate to anybody in a constructive fashion, except the white supremacists when they want you to do it. Okay? So you got to think about what is their objective. because whether anyone realizes it or not, which just shows how good they are, they want to have absolute control without the person knowing that they are being controlled. That's the perfect situation. So that the person thinks that, oh,
but
what
listen,
I'm doing
what
is just the things that I want to do.
Do you think you're not being controlled?
Let me say this.
You are being controlled.
Let me say this. Let me say this about the way the white supremacists operate, because many people think this. The Indians thought that. I'm in control.
No,
I'm asking
you. Do you think you're in control because you're making it seem like you have more control because you're able to think past the white supremacists' game plan? And what I'm saying is, what makes you think you have more control or more freedom than I do? Perhaps, and I don't know for a fact, but perhaps I might have more freedoms than you do.
See, but that's another thing that the white supremacists do. Wait a minute. Let's hold it just
reality,
a
second. Not the reality somewhere on Red Planet, whatever these people are from in this chat room.
Well, let me answer the questions as we go along. I'm not saying that you don't have anything. I'm saying what counter-racist logic says, because I'm dealing with racism. Now, I'm also saying something else, which you have said to me, and I'll just repeat it. You said you really got no problem with because you have figured out a way to be happy.
I did not say I don't have more problems. I said that perhaps
what
my
did you
situation
say? You said you were happy.
is a little bit more. I did say I'm happy, and you said you were unhappy. I said perhaps my situation, not knowing you personally, but knowing my situation, perhaps I have more freedoms. And I don't want to get into the details because I will assume that you understand what I mean by freedoms. Or freedom, benefits or whatever you want to talk about, than you.
No problem. But see, here's what. That's exactly what I mean by the system of white supremacy. And one thing I want to definitely make clear. Wait a minute. Hold it. I'm trying to make something.
My situation is better than a lot of white people.
I know, but you're trying to.
How are the white people controlling?
Wait a minute. But see, we think. See, there's an anxiety here, and this is exactly what is supposed to be avoided. We are trying to even talk over each other. This is exactly what happens under the system of white supremacy, and neither one of us are white supremacists. That's number one.
Absolutely.
Because I know you're not a white supremacist if you're considered to be non-white.
Absolutely.
All right, because you can't be.
That's
you got to be white
to make the point to you as a non-white person. That's telling
I
you.
know that, but here's what. But see,
and you might
hold on a second, ma'am. Hold on a second, ma'am. Thank you.
I have to explain something very important as to what's going on right here. The very fact that we have this high-pitched conversation means that the system is working exactly the way they want it. Because, see, now, I talk to white people. It's a white lady that calls me every day or every other day and has been doing it for years. We don't get into this. And you know why?
Well, good. I'm glad you're socializing with white people.
Wait a minute. No. Wait, hold it. You see, you're doing it again.
She's not controlling you like
hold on a second, ma'am.
See, the anxiety is there. The anxiety is there. You can see it. You can't even wait for me to explain something because the anxiety is there.
You keep saying certain things that really don't connect. I don't get your point.
But you are saying it as if you...
And I'm asking you questions because at one point your concept seemed maybe a little unique, but maybe I haven't been paying attention to all the other shows that these people from the chat room are, because maybe this... honestly, I think that... this show is very interesting. I do, I think I enjoy the host.
But I got a question.
I like the way it goes. But in all honesty, I understand your point. You don't know my background, so I've heard everything you have to say before, unfortunately. But I do wish you the best, and much love to the people in the chat room who don't understand what I'm talking about. Much love.
Thank you. I find that very interesting. I want you to finish your point that you wanted to make with the caller, but I also want to reiterate.
Yes, so what has been happening between me and the caller has been exactly what's not supposed to happen. See what I mean? But every time it heads this way. See, I was on a program the other night. Same thing. See, because the white supremacist has it set up so that this is a guarantee. See, the very fact that she feels even interested enough to have these conversations, all right, and then have this kind of anxiety while she's having it, that is exactly what the white supremacists want. And this is why I say the code says, hey, if you're going to have an argument, you don't have arguments about race with no other black person ever, or no other non-white person. It's never supposed to happen. All arguments are supposed to be between white and non-white. All, without exception. Never. See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But see, because it's going to be automatic when it's white. I mean, when it's non-white with non-white.
That I think it is fabulous that you were able to demonstrate that in the caller. Thank you for calling in for demonstrating that. I wanted to remind our listeners, most of these programs, and I believe this is about the 40th program that I have done addressing racism, white supremacy, most of my programs I have white people on. In fact, we have a white professor from the University of Southern California. She's coming on in less than 30 minutes to talk about white supremacy. And I generally never have that much interrupting, that much anxiety, tension in the conversations I have with white people. Even if we do not agree, I've had Tim Wise on the show, and we didn't agree about very much of anything. He's not a fan of mine. I'm not a fan of his. But we did not have nearly as much tension, yelling, interrupting in the conversation. It was smooth. The person would allow you to make your statement, voice where they didn't agree, no yelling, no voices raised, no interruptions. Very stark contrast in most of the conversations I observe between non-white people and other non-white people about racism. It ends up being arguments and complaints and just not constructive communication. So I'm very thankful that you pointed that out. And if you could you finish your statement about your thoughts that she said she was gay and she said she was happy, and you felt that was by white supremacist design. If you could perhaps maybe wrap up, and if you could explain that thoroughly for us so we all get an understanding.
I mean, you know, once you get the non-white person in a state of mind and a viewpoint of life, of what life should be about for them, you know, as a victim, I mean, there's an old adage, I mean, there's nothing better than having a happy slave. That's a perfect situation. A slave that's walking around grumpy all the time, man, is dangerous. I mean, and any slave master going all the way back through history, I mean, will tell you whether, you know, you're talking about the Roman Empire or you're talking about a plantation slave owner in Louisiana. They will sell a grumpy slave down the river first time they get a sale. And then one thing they don't want the rumor to get out. Now, this slave is always grumpy, always complaining about everything. Don't like nothing. Don't like the food, don't like the plantation. Can't stand the master. But the slave that's playing that banjo and kicking up his heels and think he's in heaven, that's the one we want to keep. A grumpy slave might slip up behind you any dark night with an axe.
Well, I assume our caller, it seemed like from what she was saying on the phone, she doesn't think white supremacy is that much of a problem. She said she was happy. I assume white supremacy.
And another thing, I just want to interject this. That was very important, but she wouldn't let me get that word in. If she's already happy with the way everything is, then why bother with having these kind of conversations at all? See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I wrote my book only for people who say that they are victims. It says right on the cover. I've run into dozens of people who say, I'm not a victim. I say, well, then the book is not for you. If racism doesn't affect you, that you don't have no problem with it or nothing like that, it's nothing in this book for you. And in fact, the only suggestion I have for you is to teach other people how you were able to pull it off. you're a black person and you've never been victimized by racism, and if you were victimized, you came up with a way of dealing with it that really worked for you. I said you should do, what the code says that every person should do to find themselves in that golden position. Teach other people exactly how you did it, all the steps that you took. And I said, and you can start with me.
If being so-called homosexual is a part of that process, I think I'm going to have to pass and find.
No, I'm going to pass on that part.
Yeah,
see what I mean? Because that's a part of the racist conspiracy. I've already decided that. See, so if they come to me, well, Fuller, if you really don't want to deal with racism and be happy and get all kind of benefits, which he mentioned benefits,
yes,
and all like that, and go on and live your life, then, Fuller, you got to become a homosexual. And then I say, no, because that's a part of their plot. It's not a part of mine. No, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I know about the benefits that go with that. I've seen it. But are they really benefits? What does it, and I have this written in some of my notes, what does it matter to gain the whole world and have to give up your gender?
As I said, we have a suspected white supremacist